I just feel like you could have been nicer to me.
Oh my gosh, well I feel like you could have done 80 more things today than you did. I feel like I woke up and I cleaned our room, I did our bed, I cleaned the sheets, I did the laundry, I put your clothes away, I come in the kitchen, nothing's done. So I do everything, then I make you breakfast, then I get the baby ready, then I get myself ready. And what do, Michael? You just tell me I could have been nicer. That seems pretty nice to me.
The amount of moms on Instagram and TikTok who say they feel like single moms while being fully legally married is enough that I would call it an epidemic. As a former married single mom who suffered in silence for years and am now out of the trenches and on the other side, I feel like I just want to bring a little bit more of a voice to this. So today we're talking about this growing issue in motherhood. What is a married single mom? Why is it becoming so common? What kind of toll does it take on mom and the kids? And most importantly, where do we go from here? And spoiler, even though I am a divorcee, and yesterday I realized I am quite literally now the complete opposite of a married single mom. I am a unmarried mom who has a very helpful partner. I will just say that I don't think divorce is always the right answer, but let's get right into it. What even is a married single mom? We'll start with the obvious. Number one, she is married, at least legally, but emotionally, logistically, mentally, and sometimes even financially, she feels alone. She's the one carrying the full weight of the household, all the parenting, the planning, keeping track of the millions of details, and doing so while dodging and managing the added stress that her husband often adds to the load. Now, I am not trying to compete in the struggle Olympics. I'm not saying that being a married single mom is harder than being a single mom or vice versa. Every situation is different, so don't get it twisted. But the reason being a married single mom is sometimes considered more stressful is because beyond having to manage all the things that you would have to manage anyways as a single parent, when you're a married single mom, you're also having to manage your partner's moods, which aren't always great. The extra dishes, the extra laundry, the extra meals, snacks, the deep annoyed sigh your partner lets out the moment you finally gain the courage to ask them for help, and then afterwards being let down because of their often inability to help due to weaponized incompetence.
I was responsible for the children in every aspect: cooking, cleaning, bathing, getting them to and from daycare, planning, appointments, everything. I was responsible for holidays. I was responsible for paying the bills, making sure they were paid on time. I was responsible for my husband's appointments and all of his needs. He treated us like absolute garbage all the time. Never cleaned up after himself, never helped around the house. Only spent time either cheating on me or on his Xbox. Now he's been gone for 7 months now. I've been a single mom now, and it's so much easier. It's so much happier.
Again, I am not here to say which struggle is worse than the other. Obviously, finances can be the biggest struggle there is. Every situation is different, but as an actual single mom, at least you know what you're working with. There is this weird clarity that you can have just knowing that everything is actually on you. Only having to manage yourself and the kids, whereas when you're married, it's often paired with extra disappointment and another person's mood and workload that you have to tiptoe around. So that is what we mean when we're talking about a married single mom.
Here are a few signs that your husband is a man-child. Number one, are you picking up his crap, his clothes, all sorts of stuff all over the house every single day? Does he come home every night and say, hey, what's for dinner? If you're coordinating and scheduling all of the appointments for you and your children and for them, doctors, dentists, etc., you've got a man-child on your hands.
Now let's talk about how so many women fall into the default parent trap and why that is often the gateway to becoming a married single mom. According to whattoexpect.com, the default parent is the parent who takes the assumed role of primary caregiver in the home. A default parent manages a heavy mental load, the often invisible labor required to run a household and family. The role can fall to the stay-at-home parent, a full-time working parent, or a single parent with a co-parent who lives outside the home. One parent parent is the first line of defense or just carrying a lot more responsibilities. The structure isn't necessarily a bad thing. Families are busy, and sometimes having an identified point person to manage the family's needs is a great way to tackle the difficulty of family life with efficiency. However, in some cases, this dynamic can lead to unintended negative consequences. According to Detroit Moms, you may be the default parent if you are most often meal planning, prepping, and cooking, picking up and dropping off at school, organizing schedules, cleaning the house, the go-to for comfort. Just off the top of my head, if you're also the parent making sure everyone's going to their doctor's appointments, buying new clothes, reviewing school forms, keeping track of the sports schedule, birthday party RSVPs and gifts, organizing the holiday functions, packing snacks, backup outfits, sunscreen, like the list could go on. If you are a mom, you know I will spare you. I don't want to stress you out. And what can lead to resentment is your partner often doesn't realize just how much you're doing, or even worse, and this is where it starts breaching into married single mom territory, is if your partner practices weaponized incompetence. Weaponized incompetence is a manipulative tactic where someone pretends to be incapable or unwilling to perform a task, often a household chore or work responsibility, to avoid doing it.
Mommy's coming! She's coming to save you! And she has boobs! What happened?
This woman just tried to take a simple shower. 10 or 15 minutes with a child being left with the father. And the child is screaming their head off. He doesn't look like he has done anything to console this child. So the next time she wants to take a shower, she's going to have to bring the car seat in with her, bring the baby in the shower with her. Like all of that because this grown, able-bodied man is purposely doing this job badly. How dare she take 10 or 15 minutes for herself to bathe herself? This is why so many like new moms are like in shirts, encrusted with like breast milk. They're dirty, they don't shower, their hair is greasy, like all these different things because they can't take a minute for themselves.
In that clip, the mom just wanted to take a 15-minute shower, and she couldn't even do that without feeling like her baby was suffering for it. So she becomes the default parent 100% of the time, not because she wants to be, but because this man is teaching her that if she doesn't shoulder the responsibility 100% of the time, their child is going to suffer for it. And this man knows exactly what he's doing. I could make a whole other video about weaponized incompetence. I don't want to get too angry. Let's stay cool, calm, and collected. But when someone purposely does a terrible job so that you never ask them to do that job again, that's how so many women end up doing their unfair share of the labor around the house, because they know if they ask for help, they'll ultimately be punished for it because he's going to do it wrong, and so she's gonna have to do it anyways, and he'll be annoyed that she even asked for help in the first place, or he's going to do it so wrong that it actually ends up causing more workload for the woman in the end. And so in the future, she'll just never ask and do everything on her own.
He thinks that he's been working, so he has the right to chill and relax. He wants to watch sports, but when he gets off, your job is still not done because you have to plan the dinner, go to the grocery store, then you have to cook the dinner. You're cooking dinner while he's chilling with a beer on the couch. You clean up the kitchen from cooking dinner. Then it's time for you to do bath time with the kids, but not because he can't help, because you asked him so many times to do it, and then he makes it such a problem and he complains and whines about it. He uses his weaponized incompetence to make it seem like, oh, I don't know what to do. Can you help me? Can you help me? That you just rather do it by yourself because he's sure not going to offer to help you. You're angry and upset and you are really, really overworked, but it's bath time, which means it's bedtime and it's time for the kids to go lay down. The kids go lay down. You walk into your bedroom and your husband is there with his peen out. It's out and he's ready to work you a little bit more before you go to bed.
So how did we get here? Why are there so many women who feel like they're in this married single mom dynamic? I think there are a ton of factors to consider, but the first I'll mention is I believe over the last several decades, the roles and responsibilities for women have changed, but for men, not so much. Women now have more opportunities than ever, and don't get me wrong, I'm all for it. Obviously, I am a working mom. I love that I have options and have the option to even get divorced and have my own credit card, have my own mortgage. I can take care of myself. But in general, in our society, a lot of families can't afford to live on a single income. So right now I'm just talking about dual income households. Obviously there are other types types of households, like nuance, let's all use nuance right now. We're talking about the average American can't live off a single income. So as women took on more in the workforce, more financial responsibility, more independence, the expectations at home never changed.
The contribution to a home is so much more than a paycheck. In most homes, both parents were working anyway. So both parents are managing their 40-hour work week, and then typically the mom is carrying 100% of the labor distribution within the home. I don't know why we call it distribution of labor when it's not distributed at all. The mental labor of being the CEO of your home, the boss of your entire family, is absolutely draining.
Here is the most simplest way I have ever heard it put, and like it rewired my brain. But a really impressive man is just an average woman. Like when you see a man and he is working a full-time job, but also maybe he's the one who takes the kids to school in the morning, doesn't necessarily do pickup in the evening. Let's say he did the grocery shopping so that his wife could cook and then he helps her clean afterwards. Like everyone is so impressed with that man. But actually, I would even say like that might not even be the average woman comparison, because for whatever reason in our society, the average woman is expected to do everything. And I'm not saying we shouldn't praise men who help their partners. I'm in a relationship with a very helpful man who I am so appreciative of. Like, I'm praising him all the time, especially after coming from a relationship where I didn't get any help at all. I am forever thankful and grateful anytime he cooks dinner. But it's more so the point that I think we should be giving women more credit for all they do, not just expecting them to be superheroes, because like that's just crazy. On top of all those expectations, there's also been the collapse of the village. We've all heard the saying, it takes a village to raise kids, but I don't know, a lot of us I feel like are looking around. I don't know if the village has been pillaged and burned down, but I know a lot of us don't have one.
You know what they talk about? Is having babies all the time. Have a baby, have a baby. When are you having a baby? You know what they don't talk about? It takes a village. Okay, I heard that. Where the fuck's the village?
Let me just say that when my child grows up and becomes a parent, I will always be there for them, because there is nothing lonelier than being a millennial mom. And I know I'm not alone in this, because I have seen so many people complaining about this on social media. We grew up in a generation where our parents left us with anyone and everyone, our grandparents, our aunts and uncles, with our cousins, and we were never home. But now that we have our own kids, those parents of ours, we thought they were going to be stand-up grandparents. They are nowhere to be fucking found.
Many people now are parenting in isolation, and unless you can afford full-time help, which like honestly most of us can't, like your partner is your only support system. And if they're not supportive, it really sucks. I'm laughing just because I guess it's in my past. It reminds me of that meme where it's like they're laughing and then it's like, no, but it is serious. You know what I'm talking? I'm gonna find it. I'm gonna play it.
No, but it's not funny. At the end of the day, is it? It's serious.
And it really is serious. And that is why I'm talking about it. And the last point I'll say on this topic on why does it seem so common now is really, is it more common now in 2025? Or is this kind of how it's always been, but women finally have a voice, and a voice that can really be amplified with social media? I don't know. Let me know your thoughts on if it is more common or not in the comments below. Being a married single mom, you feel unseen, unappreciated. Over time, that leads to burnout, and I feel it's why so many women say that they feel like they lost themselves in motherhood. Because how do you keep any sense of identity when you are spending every waking moment of your life thinking about what everyone else needs? There's no time or energy left for you. And yet, a lot of women stay in these dynamics longer than they want to, longer than they probably should, and the question is why? For one, and I feel like this is by far probably the biggest one, is there is financial fear.
Single, married, working mom of 2. I know you're probably thinking my caption doesn't make any sense, but I just want to give light to my situation because I may not be the only one in this specific situation. Let me tell you a little backstory. I've been married for 10 years and my marriage ended about 5 years ago. When I tell you my marriage ended, I'm telling you, I do not call my husband my husband. He is my baby daddy and he is a third motherfucking child. I know you're thinking, well, if your marriage has ended, why haven't you gotten a divorce? First of all, divorce costs hella money, especially with kids and with a man that does not want to divorce you. And the cost of living is extremely high. And for me, it's really hard for me to maintain these kids all on my own.
This is by far probably the biggest one. Most families need two incomes to support their household unless they're willing to downsize. There is also financial fear when there's financial abuse involved, which I unfortunately really do think is way more common than most people realize. That's probably the number one DM I get from stay-at-home moms who ask me how I left because their husbands give them zero access to finances. Even when money isn't the issue, I think guilt still is. Guilt because you don't want to break up your family. You don't want your kids to have to live between two households. I think there's also embarrassment and shame because, let's be honest, there still is a stigma behind being a divorced woman and a single mom. And I feel like it's a stigma often perpetuated by the toxic men who don't want their wife to leave, because I'll say on the other side, the only people who seem to have a problem with it in my comments are shitty dudes, like truly. But the last reason I think women stay, and I feel like is a large part of why I stayed so long, is you hold on to hope. Hope that it's gonna get better, hope that it's just a hard season, hope that he's going to wake up someday and be out of his rut and just wanna help you and be there. And when you hope for all these things and none of them come to fruition, sometimes you also start to point the blame inward and start, I guess, almost gaslighting yourself and telling yourself, maybe I'm just expecting too much and maybe this is just what marriage is and this is normal. And to me, that is the toll that this dynamic takes on moms, is that, I don't want to cry, beyond the exhaustion, the way you slowly start to convince yourself that being neglected is normal, that your needs are unreasonable, that you just being silent is strength, that I feel like is the toll it takes. The way it just chips away at you slowly until one day you just feel like you've lost yourself. Oh, it's been a while since my split, but I still get like choked up sometimes. Like I live my life mostly, I live my life mostly. I'm just like this happy, carefree person. If I didn't talk about like my divorce and my previous life, I feel like most people would have no freaking clue about it. And most of my life, it's not top of my mind at all. But I know like what I had to do to get to this point, and that is why I still talk about it, to help the people who were in my position a few years ago. And so when I do like think about it, I do get emotional about it. But even though I'm crying in all these videos, I am a happy person ultimately. All right, let me play a few more TikToks, chill out a little, and then we'll move on.
So I just got back from the store and my husband goes, "Did you enjoy your time? That was the other half of my Christmas gift." I'm like, "Where? What is it?"
I babysit for hours. I babysat for hours.
He says freedom. You were gone for 2 hours and I babysat. You gave us freedom. Baby, I love you. And he kissed me.
You're kind of a joke if you're a dad saying that you're babysitting. These dads will be like, "I'm on babysitting duty. I got the kid today." No, you don't. You're just being a dad. You're doing your duty as a father. You imagine my wife breastfeeding, talking about, "Oh, I'm babysitting today." Your yitty's not going anywhere. You have to be there as a woman. And men, we need to have that same type of standard. So fellas, stop saying you're babysitting. Delete that from your terminology.
Chapter 5, my advice and where do we go from here? One of the unexpected blessings of being divorced is that women, friends, families, followers in my DMs feel very comfortable opening up to me about the struggles they're going through in their life. Before my split, I feel like so many people put on this super rosy front. And now that people can look at my life and clearly see how not perfect it is, I feel like they feel it's a safe space for them to share how not perfect their life is also. And I actually feel so much closer to so many of my friends and family members because of it. They'll confide in me, and when they do ask for my advice, I share it. And this is some of the things I've shared when people have come to me saying they feel like a default parent or a married single mom. When my friends have come to me and say, you know, they're feeling alone in their marriage, overwhelmed, like everything's on them, this is the first thing I normally tell them. And it's not what you're expecting initially, at least not what I think you're expecting, considering I am a divorcee. First, I do not think divorce should be the first move. Divorce is brutal, it's expensive, co-parenting is for the birds. I absolutely can't stand it. Having absolutely no say on what is happening to your kids when they're at the co-parent's house is awful. So if there is any way to save the marriage, I 100% suggest that. If you're feeling like the default parent because your partner is unobservant, maybe not the quickest thinker, maybe they have ADHD or are somewhat on the spectrum, but fundamentally they are a good person, they are honest, they're kind, they have your best interests at heart, they're just maybe not as quick to jump on things as you. I 1000% think that is worth working on. This book is one I have recommended to multiple friends. It is called Fair Play by Eve Rodsky. It also comes with a game and a card deck, but it is about helping couples divide the household labor and sometimes the invisible labor that often gets put on women, and just divvies up the workload so that it can be a more fair partnership. If you can afford it, maybe consider going to couples therapy to talk through this stuff as well. But overall, if you have a good, honest man, I do think that sometimes women are just more programmed to do some of these domestic labor, household tasks more than men. And so I do think that giving your spouse a little grace isn't always the bad thing. Also, maybe they had a mom who never taught them to do all these things. I'm not saying that's an excuse. It just takes them a little bit more time for you to get them up to speed. Divorce is not all sunshine, happiness, rainbows, roses at all. Like I don't get any child support or alimony. Like, I get stressed about money sometimes. It stresses me out what my kids have to go through at their dad sometimes. So yes, if there's any way to save it, talk to your partner, communicate, be patient, get him up to speed, go to therapy, get that book, Fair Play. If he genuinely loves you and cares about you, he will work towards you both feeling like things are equal and fair in the relationship.
Yesterday, I told a really personal story about how I was considering divorcing my husband after being together for 16 years because our marriage felt unfair, specifically when it came to the work required to manage a home and raise kids and the mental load. And this is obviously a very common question I get, which is, what do we do to fix the situation? And so I will tell you. First and foremost, not all of our conversations around this were graceful. Sometimes it was a fight about the dishwasher, and ultimately those fights never resulted in any productive change, like ever. The thing that really helped us was we came together one day and I said to him, like, I'm incredibly unhappy. I don't want to be unhappy anymore. And he came to me and told me how he was feeling, which was like he was feeling a lot of shame and embarrassment and frustration. And I was feeling alone and isolated, and I felt like a failure. And so we came together and we said, okay, what do we want ultimately? We want the marriage we had 3 years ago. We want to be happy and healthy and thriving. We want our home to function well. We don't want me to be doing everything, and he doesn't want to feel like I'm constantly yelling at him. And so what do we do? How do we change this dynamic? I think first and foremost, we had to get on the same page about what our goal was. What are we trying to do here? Ultimately, we needed to share the work more equally or in an equitable way. So it's never 50-50. It just can't be in life, but it's much more fair than it was. And then we had to talk about how to do it. So I think we had to really break down how we got here. Like, why did we end up here? And ultimately, it's not just our faults as a couple. Like, there's obviously things we both could have done differently, but we live in a society that tells men and women who they should be and tells us what to prioritize and what it looks like to be a good dad and a good mom. And we live in a system that essentially places this burden on women from the get-go, the mental load of it all. We don't have paid leave or affordable childcare or any of those things, and those disproportionately impact women. And that came into play in our relationship relationship as well. And so we talked about those things, but ultimately we came up with a plan. The first thing we did was Fair Play, which is a game by Eve Rodsky, but she also has a book. That was our jumping off point. It's definitely not where we stopped. I think it is a really great tool for sharing the work. So essentially you get a deck of cards, or I've created a spreadsheet, which you can get. And in the spreadsheet, it basically lists all the tasks in your house: laundry, cooking, cleaning, buying birthday presents, all of those things. And in my spreadsheet, it says like who owns it, me or him. We have what it was, and then the future state. And at first I owned like 65 and he owned 15. After we did the game, it was much more fair. I don't remember exactly what the numbers were. Since then, we've done all different things to kind of navigate this, because ultimately for us, it's not just about the chores. It's about the mental load. It's about our time, right? I wanted more time. I wanted to be able to go to yoga. I wanted to be able to do those things. So we sat down, we had these conversations. We have to understand all the dynamics at play. Like, how did we get here? How do we articulate what's happening? What is our goal? What are we trying to achieve? And what's our plan to get there? But ultimately, the key to this conversation, and I will shout this from the rooftops, is you have to have a willing and able partner. If your partner is not willing and able to change and does not want to hear you or ignores you or dismisses you, nothing will change. I can't help you. Nobody really can in that situation. But if you have a willing and able partner, somebody who genuinely wants your marriage to work, wants you to be happy, wants to have a healthy relationship and a well-functioning home, change is possible. It takes a lot of hard work, but it is possible, but you have to have a partner who's willing to do that work.
Let's talk about the other scenario, which unfortunately I do think is sadly more common when a woman is feeling like a married single mom. If you are visibly doing everything around the house, and for example, let's say you're in the middle of cooking dinner and you have a kid crying, so you're also going over there to make sure they're okay. You know, the doorbell rings and you go race to the front door and you got to get back to your dishes. Like, you're running around doing everything and your husband is sitting on the couch scrolling on his phone, and it wasn't like he just had a bad day. Like, this is consistently the way it is. That is simply lack of respect, lack of consideration. Again, I'm not going to say instantly jump to divorce, but strongly consider going to therapy, couples therapy, and even just for yourself, individual therapy, so that you can discuss, learning and setting boundaries with your therapist. If this is what your life has turned into, you probably need to define and establish boundaries for yourself to make sure you're being treated with respect. And if you communicate those boundaries and he continuously disrespects them, you have some other choices to make. I'm never going to tell anyone what to do, especially on a YouTube video where there's so much nuance and I can't possibly know anyone's individual situation. But I hate to say it, if you go to therapy, learn what boundaries are, learn to set them, you've set reasonable boundaries and they're continuously disrespected, there's often way more going on. Emotional abuse, verbal abuse, cheating. Like, it honestly sounds like he's just a man with poor character. And those types of dynamics aren't just bad for you, but I had to really think about, these are not good examples I'm setting for my kids. Propaganda I didn't fall for was staying together for the kids. And I was recently reminded why this was for the best. Now, does co-parenting suck? Yes. Do I miss my kids when they're with their dad? Also, yes, truly the hardest part. But I refuse to let my boys grow up thinking the way their dad treated me was normal. Fast forward 3 years, it's been exactly 1 year since they met my 6'5", blue-eyed boyfriend Paul, who, beyond me thinking he's super cute, he's just the kindest person on the planet. Still, co-parenting is for the birds. Especially when the other house runs on a very different value system that often undermines yours. Recent example, I picked up my boys from their dads and called Paul to meet up for dinner with his boys. When I got off the phone, suddenly the backseat erupted in parody mode. "Mai, you're so sweet. Mai, what do you want for dinner, my queen?" Then one of them groans, "Ugh, Paul treats you like a princess." Is that a bad thing? Clearly they just came from their dads. So I just said, I don't hang out with people who are not nice to me, and really, what is wrong with someone being nice to me? Especially when I'm also really nice to them. They thought about it for a sec and then just replied, "Yeah, Paul is really nice and he's nice to us too." And we just left it at that. A very simple short interaction, but it reminded me why I left. It does suck. I can't control what happens at the co-parents' house, but in my house, I control the values and the example being set. So I'll keep filling my home with the kind of love I hope they model someday. And if the worst thing they can say is, "Mom, he treats you like a queen," then I think I made the right choice. And I've said it before, but I'll say it again. Just because you're married doesn't mean your family's not broken. Final thoughts. If you've made it this far, there's a good chance that some of this hit close to home. Whether you are watching this because you see a friend going through this situation and you're trying to better understand it, or it's you carrying more than your fair share and you just wanted to hear someone else tell you that you're not crazy. Whatever the reason, I hope this video was validating, informative, and allows you to see things more clearly, because I feel like, being that I'm on the other side of it and I'm quite literally not a married single mom anymore, I'm the complete opposite, an unmarried mom with a great helpful partner, I feel like I can look back on my past and see things so much more clearly. You know, they say hindsight 2020. When I was truly in the thick of it, I wasn't in a place to speak on how things should be. But I do feel like, I don't know, I never really feel like I should be a person of authority, but I'm also learning I need to give myself credit where it's due. I went from being in the trenches to being in a much better place. And so I just want to help, you know, my fellow mamas who are where I was a few years ago get to a better place. So if anything in this video resonated with you, let me know in the comments, share it with anyone else you think it could help. And ultimately, I just want you to know that you deserve support, you deserve peace, and you deserve to feel like you matter in your own home. All right. Bye.